Howdy, thanks for tuning in to Breakaway Late Nights. Breakaway Late Night is a time where students gather together after Breakaway to pursue growth and take next steps with Jesus Christ. This week, we'll be discussing 10 things you need to know to save your marriage before it even begins. We hope you enjoy the talk.
Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to respect your time, and I promise I'm going to keep this tight. Okay, and so here's the goal of this time. The reason that we're even doing this late night is that we just know that there's some of you guys that are sitting there saying, you know what, I need a little bit more than what I'm getting from the talks in there. And so, you know what, my talks are already going long. I don't know if you noticed that, but they're already going long. And it's just because there's so much material and there's just not enough time to go through it. And so tonight, what I want to do is I just want to give you 10 things that you can do to save your marriage before it even begins. Let me just get a feel right now. Who in here is engaged? Okay, a few of you. Anyone here just in a serious relationship? Some of you guys, you're with that person, you're like, I didn't realize we were serious, and you guys are going to need to have a conversation about that. You're welcome. So good luck with that. But that's great. And if you're not in one of those two categories, maybe you're single or maybe you guys are just starting to date. Either way, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm just going to jump right in. And here's the thing. Some of these, like the first one, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, you just wasted one of the 10 on that. Like, duh, of course. I'm going to say it anyway, because I never want to assume that people know exactly what I'm talking about. So here we go. First thing that you can do to save your marriage before it begins is walk closely with the Lord now. And I just want to be clear on what I mean by walking closely with the Lord. What I mean is that your relationship with God is your relationship with God. Like you're not in a relationship with God so that you can be in a relationship with your significant other. Because you need to know that the fire of your significant other's faith will only sustain your fire so long before you guys get married and you're like, you know what, it's not worth it. So you need to walk with the Lord closely now. And so here's what I want to encourage you to do. College is a great time for you to establish healthy disciplines with walking with the Lord. So if you're not consistent in opening up the Word, find a consistent time. Like you'll never just stumble into being godly. Like you have to plan it. Like put God on your calendar. You can't know His ways without His Word. And so if you want to honor each other in that relationship, one of the best things you can do is spend daily time with the Lord and cultivate a daily prayer life where you're talking to God consistently. And one of the best things that you can do, especially if you guys are engaged or you guys are getting serious, just begin to ask God in your time with the Lord, like, God, how would you have me love or encourage my significant other? That's a good discipline to start, because when you get married and you carry that discipline into marriage, man, your marriage is going to thrive because you guys are already used to praying for each other. And then when you guys start praying more with each other, it just creates more intimacy. If there's any way that we can help you walk more closely with the Lord, all you have to do is let us know. That's why we have things like the Bible reading plan, and we're going to do the Bible Institute, the Breakaway Institute in just a few weeks. Okay. Second thing that you can do to save your marriage before it begins, and I need everyone to look me in the eyes when I say this because this is so important. Here it is. Get great premarital counseling. Let me just tell you this. I will not officiate a wedding of a couple that has not gone through extensive and thorough premarital counseling. And even if you guys aren't engaged yet, if you guys are at a point, like maybe you guys are like sophomores and you're sitting there saying, we really want to get married, but like there's no way that we're going to be able to do that until we both graduate. It's okay for you guys to go through a program of like premarital counseling just to begin to talk about some of these important issues. But there are times where people have asked me to officiate their wedding, and I'm like, great, okay, who's doing your premarital counseling? And they're like, well, nobody. And their wedding is a month away. Like, in order to do good premarital counseling, you need to start it a few months before your wedding, because these things are seasonal. You can't just hop into one and hop out of one. And so let me tell you what premarital counseling looks like for me when I walk with a couple to their wedding day. Okay, we usually have about 6 sessions together. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about you sitting down with someone for an hour and then being like, okay, you're good. No, I'm talking about I will sit down with them. I will walk with them from Genesis to Revelation so that they can get a vision for God's plan for marriage. And then we will dream together. And then we're going to talk about things like conflict resolution. We're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about family. We're going to talk about past family, how many kids you want to have and all of that. And then we're going to talk about sex. Like those are the things that we're going to talk about in premarital counseling. And you need that. You need an older man and woman who can sit down with you and process through these things with you. I want to highly encourage a course called Merge. It was started by a church in Dallas called Watermark Community Church. It is one of the best programs that I've seen when it comes to premarital counseling. That doesn't mean that other people aren't doing it well. Watermark didn't pay me to give them a plug. It's just me looking and saying, these people are doing it really well. And so when you're looking for premarital counseling, you're not doing premarital counseling just to check off a box like we did it. No, you want the best, most thorough program. Like the last wedding I officiated, this couple went through premarital counseling through the Merge program, which I don't even remember how many weeks it is. But then in addition to that, they were meeting with another couple who they were just meeting with, and they were speaking into their life. And then I met with them. And I loved that, because here you have two people who are like, we want as much truth spoken into our lives prior to marriage as we can possibly get. So if anything in you is scared of doing premarital counseling for what you might find, that's a bad sign. Like run. Like that's not a good thing. Man, you want to enter into those things, because you know what it does? All it does is it affirms what God's already doing in your life. So please, I beg you, get good premarital counseling. And if your wedding is like in a month and you're like, we haven't done that, come see me and let me help you. Okay. The third thing I want to encourage you to do, if you guys are getting serious, is I want to encourage you to dream together. Here's what I mean by that. I love to do this with couples, and I would encourage you guys to do it. Don't do it like in the first 2 months of dating. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like you guys, you know where y'all are headed. I want to encourage you to dream together. So what I will do is I will sit down with couples and I will say, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to, the girl, you can go first, ladies first. And I just want you to dream about the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And I just want you to dream in as much color as possible. So yeah, we're going to start this by saying we're submitted and surrendered to God's will. So we don't know where he'll take us, where he'll lead us, and what he wants to do with us. But at least right now, I want you to think where are you living after you graduate? Where are you working? How much are you making? What does the house look like that you live in? How many rooms are there? Is there a swimming pool? What is it? What do y'all do on the weekends? Where do y'all vacation? Where do y'all travel? How many kids do you think you'll have? How long do you want to wait to have kids? What genders do you think type of kids you're going to even have? Okay, how much money do you think that your spouse is going to be making? What kind of cars do you think he'll drive? And this is not to be materialistic. But when I've done this with couples, I remember sitting with a couple and he's like, well, I was just thinking that we might move back to Arkansas where my family is. And she's like, my family's from Houston. I think we're going to H-Town. It's okay, that's something. Let's explore that. Here's another one, how involved are your parents in your life? So I was sitting with another couple and the girl was talking and she was like, okay, in her family is one of the more wealthy families in Dallas. Her parents' names are on buildings type of things. And so she was like, well, I was just thinking that my parents were going to give us the money to buy a house. I was thinking that we'd live in a house that's kind of like what my parents live in. I've been to their house. It ain't a house. Okay. That's not the right word for it. All right. And so she's thinking, you know what? My parents are just going to give us the money we need to do this. And he's sitting there I was thinking that we would live in something a little bit smaller and maybe we wouldn't get the money from them. And it's this is interesting. This is good. We need to talk about how involved your parents are going to be. So I just encourage you to dream a little, and you don't stop each other and be like, wrong. That's not going to happen. Not on my watch. No. It's just to identify. And here's the thing. If you guys are dreaming and it's like, whoa, I didn't think you wanted to live there. I want to live here. Clearly we need to break up because you want to live there and I want to live here. It's not going to work. No, it's just to show like, oh, we need to talk about that. Like, I'm not just going to assume that you're up for 6 kids, but I'm also not cool with only 2. Like, that's good to talk about. And so just dream together. Okay, next, number 4. You want to save your marriage before it begins. Have an open and honest conversation about your past. Have an open, honest conversation about your past. Anytime I do premarital counseling, I sit with a couple and I say, there's going to come a time in our counseling. It's not now, but towards the end, where I'm going to look at you guys in the eyes and I'm going to ask you if you've had the conversation I've asked you to have. You guys need to have a moment where you guys are honest with each other and just share, look, this is the past that I bring into our marriage. And you don't do that to say, oh man, let me just introduce you to the anchor that I'm towing around in my life. Now I'm going to sink your boat too. No, that's not the point. You look in Genesis 2, and what does it say about Adam and Eve? It says that they were naked and not ashamed. Just means that they were fully known, like they had nothing to hide. They were fully known and fully loved. Don't have that conversation the first month of dating. That's not what I'm saying. Don't go on date 1 and be like, let me just tell you, been addicted to porn a long time. What's your last name again? Like, that's not what you're looking for. But I remember when Catherine and I had that conversation. I wish I could tell you all of it, but you would just judge the conversation too much. But it was just this beautiful conversation where I was like, look, I just want to tell you about my past. And if you knew Kat, she was like, oh, great. Okay, here we go. And Catherine just started trying to guess what it was. She was like, you did this. I was like, no. She was like, then you did this. I was like, no, let me just tell you. Don't guess anymore. Let me just tell you, this was in my past. So yes, Catherine, there was an addiction to pornography in my past. But praise God, I've been freed from that addiction now for an extended period of time. Catherine, I need you to know that there's been relationships that I've been in and there's places that we've gone. And she didn't want all of the details. Like, I didn't need to sit there and be like, and when I was with this girl on this night, here's exactly what we did. That's not what she was looking for. But there needed to be a conversation where I carried nothing in without her knowing. You never want to hide going into marriage. That's the beauty of marriage, is grace. Like, you now become the 2 people who show each other what grace is the most. To say, you know what? Yeah, I still love you. I love you anyway. I love you in spite of all that. But you need to have an open, honest conversation. And there's one couple in all of the weddings I've done, and I've done a lot. And we got to like 2 weeks out from their wedding. And I said, I just wanted to check in if you guys had the conversation that I told you to ask. And the guy said, no. So there's things in my past I just can't tell her about. And I said, then I won't do your wedding. I won't do it. You'll have to find someone else to do your wedding, because it's that important. There's something so beautiful about being fully known, fully loved. Okay, number 5. I just want to encourage you guys to see each other through all 4 seasons. Okay, I'm talking about winter, spring, summer, fall. That's what I'm talking about, to see each other through all 4 seasons. My fear sometimes in talking about my relationship with Kat is that some of you guys hear me say, you know, we dated for 8.5 months and then I locked that thing down. We were married in 12.5 months. And you're like, great. 8.5 months? We've been dating 9 months, so it works. No. We were in a different stage in life. Like, we were out of college for a couple of years. And I was like, look, this is what my life is about, working for the kingdom. And I'm just we're not going to waste time. So we are on a very intentional, dead on track towards marriage. And if at any point it's clear from God that this isn't right, we're bailing on it. But we were in this very straightforward, honest relationship. With you being in college right now, time is on your side. And it doesn't feel like that. But you need to know the older you get, the faster time goes. It's crazy. Like you hear me say a year and you're like, oh my gosh, that's like 365 days. It's like forever. It's really not. But the reason that I say see each other through all 4 seasons is just so, you know what, you can get past the deception phase of a relationship. You're like, deception? Yeah. That's what the first several dates are. It's deception. It's trying to convince the other person that you're someone that you're not, like you're clean when you're really not. You know what I'm talking about? Like you see each other through all 4 seasons and what it looks like. You go through a summer together when you guys are separated from each other. You go through the different seasons. What I'm really getting at there is, hey man, don't be in a rush. Do not be in a rush. And I know that that is extremely hard to hear. It feels easy to say and hard to live out. But you know what? You feel like you're in a rush to get married, and then you get married and time slows down. And you're like, oh, so this is my reality for the rest of my life. So utilize that year to get to know each other as best as possible. That's why, like, you know what? And if you've already kissed, like, I'm not like, man, you screwed up. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, you know what? If you can wait as long as possible to kiss, you know what it will do? It will force you to talk. Like, that's why I love dating Catherine. And we did kiss when we were dating. But like, we waited a while. So we had to talk. Like, we communicated a lot so that when we did bring that into our relationship, I already knew exactly how I felt about it. Okay. Number 6. And this is going to, some of you are like, oops, don't make it a long engagement. Like, our engagement was 4.5 months. It was perfect. Okay. Some of you guys, you're already engaged and you're like getting married in 2 years. Can't do anything about that. Well, we can make this thing official now if you want, but, you got a crowd. We got a center aisle. We can just do this. Somebody like, please. But the reason that I tell you this, the reason that this is so important is you just need to know that when you get engaged, like if you thought that the physical aspect was a temptation prior to engagement, when you get engaged, it's just like pouring gasoline on that fire, because now you transition from like, I could see myself marrying this person to like, this is the person that I'm going to be married to, and this is the person that I will be having sex with. And so it's really easy to start acting like you're married when you're not. And so that's why, you know what? People want these long drawn out engagements because they need all the time to plan. But you know what? Hey, I'm going to get into a lot of trouble with some of your parents right now. If some of you are engaged and you're not getting married for over a year from now, I'd consider moving it up. Some of you are like, yeah, but we got Miller Chapel at SMU or Perkins Chapel or wherever. You know what? Great. But engagement is such this weird season that I never want to do again in my life. Because it is just a powder keg of like hormones raging and like stress about like table arrangements. It gives a rip. Like, I just want to get married and like go to my wedding night. Like, I don't care about the table arrangements, but like your mom just wants it to be right. Okay. I just need to, okay. I'm so sorry. Parents, if you're watching this right now, I stand by what I said. Anyway, but I'll just say this. If you're not engaged yet, I just want to encourage you, make it as short as possible. That might mean waiting longer to propose, but there's no need to get engaged and then have a 1.5 year long engagement. Okay. And if you have questions about that, let's talk. That's my encouragement. Number 7, hopefully you've already gotten this, but how did we say it? Walk in accountable relationships with people who know and love you. Okay. And I want to speak to this in a few ways. Number one, and I sang that Akon song the first night if you were here. I make a joke out of it, but here's the thing, like the relationship I told you about tonight, the one that felt more like winter, I had gotten to a place in our relationship where it got harder and harder for me to find people who actually believed our relationship was a good thing. But then when I started dating Catherine, it was so encouraging to have people being like, yeah, y'all are great together. And this is a God thing. And this is so encouraging. Be encouraged. Keep going. Lock that down. Like all of those things were so needed. And so I would just say, if you don't have a few people in your life who are witnessing your relationship and kind of walking with you through your relationship, get some people around you. The other thing that is going to be helpful is that you have accountability. Like as you get closer to marriage, like sexual temptation just gets harder and harder. And so it was important for Catherine and I to invite people into our lives. Like we were both living with people who were like, hey, y'all agreed not to be alone, so he needs to go. It was just helpful to have people who had our back. And if you guys are struggling with physical temptation, like that, look, when I say that's okay, I'm not saying just keep doing what you're doing. I'm saying, hey, you do not let shame become your anthem. What you need is some people in your life who can affirm God's grace for you, but then you need some people who can just say, okay, you're forgiven. You need to walk in that freedom. But what's going to change? Let's change it together. Okay. And I stand by what I said last week. Man, you want to get to your wedding day and you want to have a few women or a few men on your side who you're like, thank you for getting me to this moment. But then you also want those people to be like, yeah, we're not done. Like we're sticking with you through marriage. And we're committed to holding you to what you're about to vow to do. So if you say you're going to love her till death do you part, we're going to hold you to that. If you're not going to do that, just tell her you're not going to do that. Say, I'll love you until it's no longer easy, and we'll hold you accountable to that. But if you get up here and say, I'm going to love her till death, we're going to hold you to that. Those are the types of relationships that you want in your life. It doesn't feel like it, but you need it, and that's where joy is found. Okay, number 8. I kind of already said this. Don't act married when you aren't. Don't act married when you aren't. Like I remember doing this guy's premarital counseling, and he came to me and he just told me that they were struggling physically. And I was so proud of him for telling me because I wanted to pray for him. But then here's what I told him. I said, hey, a day is going to come where you're going to stand on that altar and God is going to give her to you. But he hasn't given her to you yet. So don't act like she's yours when she's not. Now, just understand what I'm saying. Some of y'all are like, that's not theologically accurate because she always belongs to God. No, I get it. But what I'm saying, what I told this guy is don't act like you're married when you're not. And it feels like you want to act like you want to spend the night together. Don't spend the night together. Nothing good will come of that. If you guys can spend the night together and nothing happens, there's bigger problems in your relationship. There is. And you should deal with that. But you need to just be careful. I would just say, until you say I do, there needs to be the understanding that you are not mine yet. And so I'm not going to pretend that you are when I have not committed my life to you before God. Understand? Okay. Number 9, spoke to some tonight. Deal with major habitual sins now. Okay. Some of you guys aren't going to want to hear this, but I really believe this. If you have a pornography addiction, do not get married until it's been dealt with. Even if you have a date set, I want to encourage you to postpone the wedding. It's that significant. And I want you to hear me. Like, I'm not trying to blow up your plans. I'm not trying to ruin your life. I'm trying to help you. And I'm just speaking from enough conversations with people who have allowed pornography to carry over from dating to marriage. And man, I have seen people get divorced because of a pornography addiction, because a guy has chosen pornography over his wife. And so I just want to encourage you, identify the habitual sins, the things that you keep running to. Like if there's an alcohol problem, like if you are consistently like kind of running back to alcohol and you're getting wasted, like you need to deal with that. If you don't deal with it now, you know what's going to happen is you're going to carry that into your marriage, and it will cause bitterness. Because either your husband or your wife is going to get tired of taking responsibility for you. I'm not trying to be harsh. I am trying to save your marriage before it begins. And I stand by what I said. Marriage will not kill your addictions. It won't. It won't. And so at the same time, like, don't go on a witch hunt. Be like, oh my gosh, I cussed today. Hey, I think we should cancel the wedding. Like, I've got something I just need to do. That's not what I'm talking about. If there's some big things now, those things aren't just going to evaporate. Like, let's deal with them. And if I can help, please come talk to me. Like, let me help you. I'm not saying you got to postpone your marriage for forever. I'm just saying, like, let's figure something out. If you don't know if y'all are at that point, come see me and let me just help you walk through it. I want you to know I'm a resource for you. And then here's the last one, number 10. Don't ignore red flags. Don't ignore red flags. And I want to be really careful with this because some of you are like, what is a red flag? Well, let me just say this. A red flag is something that causes you deep concern. A red flag is something that you're like, okay, I am trying to push past that towards marriage, but I don't know how things are going to go with that. And I'll just say, when I was dating that girl prior to Catherine, I saw the red flags. Like, we weren't on the same page spiritually. That was a red flag for me because she was a follower of Jesus. But we just were running at different paces. That didn't mean I was better than her. It just meant that I was in a different place than her. And we felt that rub, like I felt that rub. And man, just the complexity of our relationship, those were red flags. And if you're having trouble, here's why you need people in your life who love you, so you can look at them and say, do you see any red flags with our relationship? Because sometimes you can't see them. But like, you might get with your girls and they're like, he is a tool. That's the red flag. And if you're not careful, he's going to walk all over you. He's a compromising character. Like, you need to hear that. But don't ignore red flags. And I'll just say this, like, I love marriage. Kat and I are going to celebrate 13 years of marriage on October 14th. So we're like almost a month away from 13 years, which is crazy. Because I just graduated from A&M 3 years ago. I mean, it's crazy. Like, I'm only 3 years older than y'all. It's nuts. I love marriage. And at the same time, man, Catherine and I have had one of the more difficult years of marriage this past year. Our marriage is still in a great place. But even with someone that I can say, like, this is definitely God's plan for me, and she is perfect for me. And we have so much fun, and we laugh so much. And when we talk about the Lord, it is so sweet. And yet still, marriage is work. We have to fight for our marriage. And so, man, when I said last week that you're trying to find the person that you're going to choose to love for the rest of your life, you need to know that when that honeymoon phase wears off, and then it's the reality of, it's some days you wake up and you're like, I'm so glad I get to be married to this person. And then other days it's like, okay, this is, I love you, and I'm going to choose to like you, because if Kat were here, she'd be like, stop. But, I'd say that with her right here, because we love being married, but it is a fight still. And so you want to make sure that you're marrying someone that you want to go to battle with for your marriage. So don't rush into it. Do not rush into it. I'll tell you this. If you're speeding up towards marriage so you guys can have sex, Hey, you need to know in marriage, sex is a great thing, but it is not the thing. Some of you guys think it's going to be like 90% of your marriage. It won't be. Sorry to like crush some of the guys' dreams in here. I'll just say, man, there is a whole other aspect of the marriage. You are going to want to know that you are with someone that you enjoy being with and that you can fight well with and for. Okay? It's not an exhaustive list, but I tell you, I promise you, if you take these 10 things and you sit with them and you meditate on them and you do them, I promise you that it will go well for you.
Thanks for tuning in to this Breakaway Late Night. We hope you enjoyed it. To stay up to date with Breakaway, follow us on social media at Breakaway Men. Also, be sure to check out Breakaway Worship's new single, More Than Anything, available anywhere you listen to music. For more general information, or to find out how you can support Breakaway, visit breakawayministries.org.